In 1878, a frontier widow named Eliza Whitman fled into Apache territory with her 6-year-old daughter to escape brutal land thieves. What began as a mother's desperate gamble soon turned into an impossible alliance that would shake the entire Arizona territory. Before we dive into the story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more shocking stories tomorrow. Also, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let's continue with the story. The wagon wheel cracked again, and Eliza Whitman felt her heart crack with it. She pulled hard on the reins, forcing the exhausted horse to keep moving through the red dust of Arizona territory. Behind her, wrapped in a thin blanket, 6-year-old Emma whimpered with fever. "Mama, I'm scared," Emma whispered, her small voice barely audible over the grinding wheels. Eliza didn't answer. There were no comforting words left. 2 weeks ago, she'd watched 3 men gun down her husband in their own barn. 2 weeks ago, she'd heard Silas Greer laugh as he stood over Thomas's body, saying the land was his now. 2 weeks ago, the local marshal had shrugged and said there was no proof, that maybe Apache raiders were responsible. Now those same men were half a mile behind her, and she was doing the one thing every settler knew meant certain death. She was crossing into Apache lands. The boundary wasn't marked by fence or sign, but Eliza felt it the moment the wagon rolled past the last juniper tree. The air changed. The silence became heavier, watching. She'd heard the stories all her life, Apache warriors who could move like ghosts, who showed no mercy to trespassing settlers. Her hands shook on the reins. Emma sat up suddenly, her fever-bright eyes wide. "Mama, the bad men, they're coming." Eliza heard it too. Hoofbeats. Closer now. She snapped the reins harder, but the damaged wheel finally gave out completely. The wagon lurched sideways and stopped. The horse stamped nervously, sensing predators on both sides. "Please," Eliza whispered to the empty canyon around her. "Please, I have nowhere else to go." She climbed down and tried to lift the wagon, tried to force the broken wheel back into place. Splinters cut her palms. Emma started crying, the sound echoing off the red rock walls. Behind them, the hoofbeats grew louder. Silas Greer's voice carried on the wind, taunting, confident. Eliza pulled Emma from the wagon and held her close. The little girl's body burned with fever. There was nowhere to run, no shelter, no hope. She sank to her knees in the dust, her daughter in her arms, and waited for the end to come from whichever direction reached them first. Emma's breathing grew ragged, each breath a struggle. Eliza tried to soothe her, pressing a hand to her daughter's burning forehead. But Emma twisted away, delirious. The fever had gotten worse, much worse. "Sweetheart, please, try to stay quiet," Eliza begged, glancing nervously at the rock surrounding them. But Emma's small body convulsed with sobs she couldn't control. "They're gonna hurt you!" Emma cried out, her voice cracking. "The bad men, Mama. They want to hurt you." Her screams pierced the stillness. Eliza clamped a hand gently over her mouth, tears streaming down her own face. "Shh, baby. Please." But Emma fought against her, thrashing. Her voice rose higher, echoing through the canyon walls. "They want to hurt my mom! She is crying!" The words rang out like a bell, carrying across the desert. Eliza's blood turned to ice. She heard the riders pull their horses to a stop, somewhere close by. Too close. Silas Greer's laughter drifted toward them. "Well, well, sounds like our little bird is singing for us, boys." Eliza pressed Emma tighter against her chest, rocking her, whispering desperate prayers into her hair. The child's screams faded into weak whimpers, her energy spent. And then, something changed. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind died. The desert fell into a silence so complete that Eliza could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She looked up slowly, instinctively sensing a shift in the world around her. The rocks above them were no longer empty. Shadows moved where nothing had been moments before. 5 figures stood along the ridge, backlit by the fading sun. They weren't moving, just watching, waiting. The center figure was massive, taller and broader than any man Eliza had ever seen. Even from a distance, his presence radiated power. An Apache warrior, she realized. Her mouth went dry. Emma had stopped crying now, staring up at the figures with fever-glazed eyes. The riders behind them had gone quiet too. Everyone felt it. The territory had claimed them all, and something ancient had taken notice. Eliza's arms tightened around her daughter as the giant warrior began his descent from the rocks, moving with impossible grace for someone his size. This was it, the moment that would decide whether they lived or died. Naiche reached the ground in seconds, his moccasins barely making a sound on the rocky terrain. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Nearly 7 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to block out the sun. His face was weathered, hard, with eyes that had seen too much death. Eliza couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She'd heard the stories whispered in trading posts and saloons. Naiche the Unbreakable, the warrior who'd carried his wounded brother 20 miles through the desert without stopping. The man who'd survived 3 bullet wounds in a single fight and still walked away. The other 4 warriors fanned out behind him, rifles ready, but not raised. Naiche's gaze moved from Eliza to Emma, then past them toward the sound of approaching horses. Emma stirred in her mother's arms, lifting her head. Her fever-bright eyes locked onto Naiche's face. For a long moment, the giant warrior and the tiny child simply stared at each other. "Are you going to hurt my mom too?" Emma whispered. Something flickered across Naiche's expression. Pain, maybe, or recognition. His jaw tightened. The hoofbeats grew louder. Silas Greer and his 2 gunmen emerged from behind a rock formation, rifles drawn. They pulled up short when they saw the Apache warriors. "Well, hell," one of the gunmen muttered. Greer's face twisted with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "That woman's got something that belongs to me. A land deed. We're taking her back." Naiche didn't respond. He simply stepped forward, positioning his massive frame directly between Greer's men and Eliza. The message was wordless, but unmistakable. "You don't want this trouble, Chief," Greer said, his hand moving toward his pistol. "This is white business. You let us take her. We ride out peaceful." Naiche spoke then, his English rough but clear. "Woman and child stay. You leave." Greer laughed, though it sounded forced. "That's not how this works." His hand closed around his gun grip. What happened next was almost too fast to follow. Naiche moved like lightning. His hand shot out and caught Greer's wrist before the gun cleared leather. There was a sharp crack. Greer screamed. The pistol fell to the dirt. The 2 gunmen tried to draw. The other Apache warriors were on them instantly, disarming them with brutal efficiency. No shots fired. No one killed. But the violence in those movements was unmistakable. Naiche still held Greer's wrist, the bone clearly broken. He leaned close, and spoke in a voice that made Eliza's skin crawl. "You come back. You die." He released Greer, who stumbled backward, cradling his ruined hand. The three men scrambled for their horses and fled, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. Eliza sat frozen, Emma clutching her neck. She'd just been saved by the very people she'd been taught to fear. But as Naichi turned those dark, unreadable eyes back toward her, she realized something terrifying. Now she owed them everything. Naichi gestured toward the canyon pass with a single sharp motion. Eliza understood. They were moving. One of the warriors brought forward a horse. Naichi lifted Emma from Eliza's arms with surprising gentleness, settling the feverish child against his chest as he mounted. Emma didn't protest. She was too weak, her eyes half closed. Eliza climbed onto the horse behind him, her arms wrapping around his waist to keep from falling. She could feel the tension in his body, the coiled strength ready to explode into action at any moment. They rode for over an hour, climbing higher into the mountains through passages Eliza would never have found on her own. The other warriors moved ahead and behind them, scanning constantly for threats. When they finally emerged into a hidden valley, Eliza's breath caught. The rancheria sprawled below them, dozens of wickiups clustered near a small stream. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Children played near the water. And every single person stopped what they were doing when they saw her. The silence that fell was different from the desert's earlier hush. This was hostility, pure and sharp. Women pulled their children closer. Men reached for weapons. An elder with gray braids stepped forward, speaking rapid Apache to Naichi. The argument was fierce. Eliza didn't need to understand the words to know what was being said. She was white. She was the enemy. She didn't belong here. Naichi's responses were short, firm. He gestured to Emma, still limp in his arms. The elder woman's expression softened slightly when she looked at the child, but her eyes remained hard when they returned to Eliza. Finally, Naichi dismounted and carried Emma toward one of the larger wickiups. An old woman emerged, her face deeply lined. She took one look at Emma and began barking orders. Other women appeared with blankets, water, herbs. Eliza tried to follow, but Naichi stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. "Desba, help child. You wait." "That's my daughter," Eliza said, her voice breaking. "Desba, help," Naichi repeated, more gently this time. "You come." He led her to a smaller wickiup at the edge of camp. Inside was simple. A sleeping mat, a water skin, nothing more. Naichi pointed to it, then left without another word. Eliza sank onto the mat, her whole body shaking. Through the wickiup's opening, she could see Apache women moving in and out of Desba's shelter. She could hear Emma's weak cries, then soothing voices in a language she didn't understand. Her daughter was in the hands of strangers, people who had every reason to hate them, and there was nothing Eliza could do but trust them. She pressed her hands to her face and finally let herself cry. For Thomas, for Emma, for the impossible situation they'd fallen into. Outside, the camp settled into evening routines, but Eliza felt dozens of eyes watching her shelter, wondering what Naichi had brought into their midst. 3 days passed before Desba finally allowed Eliza to see Emma. The little girl lay on a bed of soft furs, her fever broken at last. Her eyes were clear when they found her mother. "Mama," she whispered, reaching out. Eliza collapsed beside her, holding her close, sobbing with relief. Desba watched from the corner, her expression unreadable. "Thank you," Eliza said, looking up at the old woman. "Thank you for saving her." Desba didn't respond. She simply gathered her herbs and left. Emma recovered slowly. Within a week, she was strong enough to walk around camp, though she stayed close to Eliza. The Apache women still wouldn't speak to them, but they no longer looked at Emma with open hostility. Children were sacred, even white ones. Eliza tried to make herself useful. She hauled water from the stream, gathered firewood, anything to prove she wasn't just taking from these people. Most ignored her efforts. A few spat in the dirt when she passed. She understood. Her people had done unspeakable things to theirs. Naichi remained distant. He'd saved them, brought them here, but now he seemed to avoid them entirely. Eliza would catch glimpses of him across camp, always alone, always watching the horizon like he expected an attack at any moment. Then one morning, Emma wandered off. Eliza found her near Naiche's wickiup. The giant warrior sat outside, sharpening a knife. Emma stood a few feet away, clutching something in her small hands. "I'm sorry," Eliza said quickly, moving to grab her daughter. But Emma stepped forward before she could, holding out a small wooden horse. "My papa made this for me," she said to Naiche, "before the bad men came." Naiche's hand stilled on the blade, his eyes fixed on the tiny carving. "He said every girl needs a good horse," Emma continued. "Do you have a little girl?" The silence stretched so long that Eliza thought he wouldn't answer. Then, quietly, "I did. Long time ago." "Where is she?" "Gone. Soldiers came." Emma processed this with a child's simple logic. "My papa's gone too. The bad men killed him." Naichi looked at her then, really looked at her. Something passed between them, an understanding that needed no words. Both had lost everything to violence they couldn't control. "I show you Apache horse," Naichi said finally. He pulled a knife and a piece of wood from his belt and began carving. His huge hands moved with surprising delicacy. Emma sat down in the dirt beside him, watching intently. Eliza stood frozen, afraid to move and break whatever was happening. Over the next hour, Naichi carved a small horse with a flowing mane. When he finished, he handed it to Emma. "Now you have 2 horses," he said. "One from Papa, one from friend." Emma beamed. "Are you my friend?" "Yes," Naichi said softly. "I am your friend." After that day, everything shifted. Emma followed Naichi everywhere, chattering about birds and clouds, and anything that crossed her mind. The giant warrior listened, occasionally grunting responses, sometimes even smiling. The camp noticed. If Naichi accepted the white child, perhaps they could tolerate her presence. A few women began acknowledging Eliza with small nods. It wasn't friendship, but it was something. One evening, Naichi found Eliza alone by the stream, scrubbing clothes against the rocks. He sat nearby, silent as always. After a long moment, he spoke. "Why you come here? You know Apache kill white people." Eliza's hand stilled in the water, "Because white people were killing us first." She told him everything. How Thomas had refused to sell their land when Greer discovered the underground spring. How water meant power in Arizona territory, and Greer wanted that power. How they'd found Thomas shot in their barn, and Greer had told the marshal that Apache raiders were responsible. "He knew no one would question it," Eliza said bitterly. "Everyone already believes you're monsters." Naichi's jaw tightened. "White soldiers kill my wife, kill my daughter. We were camped peaceful, bothering no one. They came at dawn. My daughter, she was 5 winters. She tried to run to me." His voice cracked. "They shot her in the back." Eliza turned to face him fully. "What was her name?" "Ayana. It means eternal blossom. He stared at his hands. I was hunting. When I came back, they were both gone. I couldn't save them. I couldn't save Thomas either, Eliza whispered. I hid with Emma in the root cellar. We heard the gunshots. I held her mouth closed so she wouldn't scream. I was too afraid to help him. They sat in shared silence, two people destroyed by the same kind of hatred, just wearing different faces. You're Emma, Nietzsche said finally. She reminded me of Ayanna. Same brave heart, same questions about everything. He looked toward the camp where Emma was playing with a stick. When she asked if I heard her mother, something break inside me. I hear my Ayanna saying same thing to soldiers. Nobody answered her. Eliza felt tears sliding down her cheeks. You didn't have to help us. Yes, I did. No more children watch their parents die, not while I breathe. Over the following weeks, an unlikely bond formed. Nietzsche taught Emma to identify animal tracks. Eliza learned Apache words from Desba, who'd warmed to her after seeing her tend Emma's nightmares. The three of them, broken pieces from different worlds, somehow fit together. But peace never lasted long on the frontier. One morning, scouts rode in hard, their faces grim. They'd spotted cavalry movements, a large force heading their direction. And leading them was Silas Greer. The camp exploded into controlled chaos. Women packed essential supplies while men gathered weapons and ammunition. Children were gathered close, their games abandoned. Nietzsche stood with the elders, arguing in rapid Apache. Eliza caught enough words now to understand. They had to move immediately. The cavalry was less than a day away. Desba touched Eliza's shoulder. We go now. Pack quick. But when Eliza went to get Emma, her heart stopped. The little girl was lying down again, her forehead burning. The fever had returned. No, Eliza breathed. No, not now. Desba knelt beside Emma, pressing a hand to her chest, listening to her breathing. Her face grew grave. Cannot travel. Too sick. Horse will kill her. Nietzsche appeared in the doorway. He took one look at Emma and understood immediately. His expression darkened. The elder who'd first argued against Eliza entered behind him. They spoke in harsh whispers. Eliza didn't need translation. The choice was brutal and simple. Leave the sick child behind and save the tribe, or slow down and risk everyone. Go, Eliza said, her voice steady despite her breaking heart. Take your people and go. I'll stay with her. We'll hide somewhere. Nietzsche turned to her. You die if you stay. Then I die. But I won't let Emma slow you down. Your people have already risked too much for us. The elder spoke again, gesturing toward the entrance. Time was running out. Nietzsche stood frozen between two impossible choices, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. Nietzsche, please, Eliza begged. Save your people. It's the right thing. He looked down at Emma, unconscious and vulnerable. Then he spoke, his voice like gravel. No more children die because of white man's hate. He turned to the elder and spoke with absolute finality. The elder's eyes widened, then filled with something like respect. He nodded slowly. Nietzsche knelt and lifted Emma into his arms, cradling her against his chest. We move slow. Stay together. I carry her. The cavalry will catch us, the elder warned. Then they catch us. But we leave no one behind. Within an hour, the entire rancheria was moving through the mountain passes. Nietzsche led the way, Emma wrapped in blankets in his arms. She drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally whimpering. Eliza walked beside them, carrying supplies, her legs burning from the pace. The other Apache women helped support her when she stumbled. They were all in this together now. Behind them, barely visible in the distance. Dust rose from the valley floor. The cavalry was coming, and they were coming fast. Nietzsche adjusted his grip on Emma and kept walking, his face set with determination. He'd made his choice. Now they'd all live or die by it. They climbed higher into terrain that would break horses' legs and test even the strongest warriors. Nietzsche never faltered, Emma secure in his arms despite the treacherous path. When she whimpered, he spoke softly to her in Apache. Words Eliza was learning meant, "Be strong, little one." The sun beat down mercilessly. Eliza's dress was soaked with sweat, her feet bleeding inside her worn boots. An Apache woman named Kiona appeared beside her, offering a water skin. Eliza drank gratefully. "You keep up good," Kiona said in broken English. "For white woman." It was the first time any of them had spoken directly to her, beyond necessity. Eliza nearly wept at the simple acknowledgement. They reached a narrow canyon passage by nightfall. Nietzsche studied the walls, then spoke to several warriors. They nodded and began climbing to strategic positions above. "What's happening?" Eliza asked Desba. "Nietzsche make the rocks fall. After we pass, cavalry cannot follow." It took 2 hours for everyone to file through the passage. Emma had grown worse, her breathing shallow and rapid. Desba tried to give her water, but she couldn't swallow properly. Once the last person cleared the canyon, Nietzsche handed Emma to Eliza. "Hold her. Don't let go." He climbed the canyon wall with 4 other warriors. They worked quickly, using wooden poles to lever loose the rocks they'd identified. The sound was deafening. Boulders crashed down, filling the passage completely. When the dust cleared, the path was impassable. Nietzsche descended and reclaimed Emma without a word. They kept moving. 3 days blurred together. Emma drifted between fever dreams and brief moments of clarity. During one lucid moment, she looked up at Nietzsche and whispered, "Are we safe yet?" "Not yet, little blossom. Soon." Eliza had never been so exhausted. Her body screamed for rest. But every time she thought about stopping, she saw Apache women, twice her age, pushing forward without complaint. Women who'd already lost children, husbands, entire families to soldiers. Women who had every reason to abandon her, but didn't. On the 4th morning, Desba pulled Eliza aside. Her expression was grave. "We reach Sacred Spring tomorrow. Good water. Good medicine. But Emma, she is very bad now. Maybe too late." "No," Eliza said firmly. "She's going to make it. She has to." Desba gripped her shoulder. "You love her fierce. Good. But you must know truth. And there is other truth you must hear." "What truth?" "When we reach spring, you cannot go back to White World. You know too much now. Our hiding places, our paths. If cavalry catch you, they make you tell. You understand? You stay with us forever, or you die. No other choice." Eliza looked at Emma in Nietzsche's arms, then at the people who'd sacrificed everything to protect them. "I understand, and I choose to stay." They reached the sacred spring at dawn, exhausted and desperate. The water was crystal clear, fed by an underground source. Desba immediately began preparing medicines, while other women set up a temporary camp. Nietzsche laid Emma beside the spring, her breathing barely visible now. Eliza knelt beside her daughter, stroking her hair, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Then the lookout shouted. Cavalry, coming fast along the ridge they'd just descended. The Apache warriors grabbed their rifles, taking defensive positions behind rocks. Nietzsche stood, his face grim. They'd run out of places to run. Captain Rutledge rode at the front of the column, 50 soldiers behind him. Silas Greer rode beside him, his broken hand wrapped in a dirty bandage, his face twisted with vindictive pleasure. The captain raised his hand. The soldiers stopped, weapons ready. "You're surrounded," Rutledge called out. "Release the hostages and no one needs to die today." Hostages? Eliza stood, fury giving her strength. "We're not hostages. They saved us from him." She pointed at Greer. Greer's face reddened. "Shut your mouth, woman. You don't know what you're saying. The fever's made you crazy." "The fever made me see clearly," Eliza shot back. "You murdered my husband. You tried to murder us. These people protected us when no one else would." "She's been brainwashed," Greer told Rutledge. "Apache do that. They turn people against their own kind." Emma stirred. Her eyes opened, fever bright but aware. She saw the soldiers, saw Greer, and something seemed to snap into focus. She struggled to sit up. "Baby, stay down," Eliza urged. But Emma pushed herself to her feet, swaying. She walked toward the soldiers with the fearless logic of a child who'd already lost everything. Nietzsche moved to stop her, but Eliza grabbed his arm. Something in her gut said to let this happen. Emma stopped 10 feet from Rutledge's horse. Her voice was weak, but clear. "That man killed my papa. He shot him in our barn. Mama and me hid in the ground and heard it. Then he came after us, and the Apache man saved us. His name is Nietzsche, and he's my friend." Greer's horse sidled nervously. "The child is confused. She doesn't understand." "I'm not confused," Emma interrupted, her voice gaining strength. "You're a liar. You're a bad man, and you want to hurt people who helped us." Rutledge looked at Emma, then at Greer, then at the desperate camp before him. Something was calculating behind his eyes. "Greer, you told me Apache raiders killed the girl's father. Said you found the body yourself." "I did find him. The savages must have—" "Then why does the child say different?" Greer's face went pale. "Captain, you can't seriously believe—" "I believe a child has no reason to lie," Rutledge said coldly. He turned to his lieutenant. "Arrest this man." "What?" "No!" Greer reached for his gun with his good hand. Nietzsche was faster. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, disarming Greer before he could aim. The soldiers raised their rifles, but Rutledge shouted, "Stand down!" Nietzsche held Greer's gun, staring at the man who'd caused all this suffering. For a moment, Eliza thought he might shoot him. Instead, he handed the weapon to Rutledge. "Thank you," the captain said quietly. He looked at Nietzsche with something like respect. "I've been a soldier 20 years. I know a warrior when I see one, and I know a coward." He nodded toward Greer, now being shackled. Rutledge dismounted and approached Emma. He knelt to her level. "Miss, you're very brave. I'm going to take this man to face justice. Would you like to come with us? We can take you somewhere safe." Emma looked back at Nietzsche, then at her mother. "I am somewhere safe." Rutledge followed her gaze to the Apache camp, understanding dawning on his face. "You want to stay with them?" "They're my family now," Emma said simply. The captain stood, brushing dust from his knees. He looked at Eliza. "Ma'am, you understand what you're choosing. You'll be considered renegades, traitors to some. There's no going back." Eliza walked to stand beside Emma, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "These people protected us when our own abandoned us. When we had nothing, they shared everything. That's not something I'm willing to forget, Captain." Rutledge was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll report that you were killed in the desert. Both of you. As far as the Army's concerned, this conversation never happened." He looked at Nietzsche. "You have my word." "Why you help us?" Nietzsche asked. Because I'm tired of watching good people die for bad men's greed, Rutledge said. And because that little girl reminded me why I became a soldier in the first place, to protect the innocent, not punish them. He mounted his horse and gave the order to move out. Greer screamed threats and curses as they dragged him away, but his voice faded into the distance. When they'd out, dust settled. Emma collapsed. Naiche caught her before she hit the ground. The effort of standing, of speaking, had drained everything she had left. Desba rushed forward with her medicines. Now we heal her properly. She earned it. Over the following weeks, Emma's fever finally broke for good. The sacred spring's water, combined with Desba's knowledge, worked miracles. Eliza learned to speak Apache fluently, to prepare food their way, to read the signs of weather and danger. Emma learned to ride, her laughter echoing through the canyons as Naiche taught her the ways of his people. One evening, Desba found Eliza watching the sunset. "You regret staying?" Eliza thought about her old life, the farm, the society that had failed her. Then she looked at Emma racing toward them, breathless and excited about a hawk she'd seen. Behind her, Naiche followed at a distance, his face softer than it had been in years. "This is home," Eliza said. "We belong here." Years would pass. Stories would spread through Arizona territory about the ghost woman who lived with the Apache, about the giant warrior who protected a white child like she was his own. Some called it madness. Others called it betrayal. But in a hidden canyon, where a sacred spring flowed eternal, 3 broken souls had found something the frontier rarely offered. They'd found healing. They'd found family. And they'd found proof that love could bridge any divide if people were brave enough to cross it. If you enjoyed this story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible true stories of courage and redemption. Tomorrow, we'll share another tale that will touch your heart. Don't miss it.